Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. TerraPlex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from TerraPlex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with TerraPlex Ag. Visit TerraPlexAg.com.
Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
I want to go to Ireland. Welcome to Williams and Blum Wednesday. We are presented by our friends at the Mechdyne Corporation, MECHDYNE.com. We are in the Wild Rose Casino Studios, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. No Cody Road this morning. Perhaps tonight. My name is Chris Williams. I'm joined by Brent Blum. Again, appreciate Mechdyne. 4 years now sponsoring the program. We wouldn't be here without them. God love them. Mechdyne. Enabling discovery. We are enjoying a bye week for the Cyclones, a much-needed one. Bloom and I are going to head north to watch Brock Purdy hopefully lose to the Minnesota Vikings.
Lose in a great way.
I hope he throws 5 touchdowns and loses.
Brock way.
And doesn't get hit once. I love you, Brock. Just kidding, brother.
Brock.
It sucks that my guy, Kene Wongwu, is no longer with the Vikings. I went out and bought that jersey, and I feel like I got fleeced. Do I still wear the Wongwu jersey?
Yes.
You still rep my guy?
You still got to. Interestingly, Kene just got picked up by the Jets.
I saw that, man, the Iowa State Jets.
The Iowa State Jets are just getting fully loaded.
You know what was weird? I was watching that game, and you forget about Will McDonald even.
You forget about Will, and he played a lot.
I know.
A lot of snaps.
Lazard and Brees are like so front and center because Lazard's connected to Rodgers all the time, and Brees gets the ball like every play. You forget about Will being there. And underrated part of the Campbell era, in my opinion, that we don't talk about enough, but I think my favorite legacy of the Campbell era is all the guys playing on Sunday, which it just makes the NFL so much better for me. Because I used to be a guy, when the Vikings aren't playing, I'm not watching the NFL.
Yep.
I'll watch my DVR, and I'm going to watch the Oklahoma State game from the weekend or catch up on my Big 12, which I still do, but it's so much more difficult for me on Sunday to just tune everything out and go back to college, because I genuinely love flipping around and, is Hutchinson playing? Just flipping around and watching all these Iowa State guys. To me, just my personal opinion, there's so many different ways you can go with this. All the Iowa State guys in the NFL might be my favorite legacy of the Campbell era.
That's a great point. I have watched more NFL football in the last 2 years, 3 years than I have in the previous decade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's directly related to that. And it's a good product, by the way, too. Monday night, that was fun. And then, they have Allen, Brees, Brock played great.
By the way, Brock looked incredible.
He looked amazing. It'd be nice if his old Ayuk could actually,
catch the damn ball.
That would have been a heck of a play. But no, that progress for those guys is a direct relation to Iowa State continuing to recruit fairly well and developing that pipeline. Now, just for example, Chris, I was at practice this fall, and there were like 5 or 6 NFL scouts there just hanging out. Iowa State now has a reputation within those circles of you're going to get a good player, a productive player, and one that's going to work hard. It's the same reason why Matt is highly coveted still in NFL circles, because the way that his players are talented, number one, but the way they approach it and are good teammates and the whole culture thing, it's just like Iowa had success in the early 2000s with the NFL stuff. Iowa State's starting to take some of that of you pick an Iowa State guy, you're going to get a hard worker, a good, talented guy that's going to do the right things. And that only helps in recruiting.
Well, it was a fun Monday Night Football
It was.
for sure with all of that. I wanted to focus today on two things. One, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to talk about our thoughts on the potential of a two-team Big 12 in the college football playoff. And I know probably jumping the gun a little bit here, but it's definitely a topic amongst Iowa State fans. And two, we'll run down this weekend slate of Big 12 games with a big one coming up on Friday night, which is technically a non-conference game. I really hate this. I hope this doesn't become a thing where we're playing like non-conference games within the conference. I understand the way it's set up now with all the realignment and stuff, and that some of this was unavoidable, but I genuinely don't like it. So basically our whole show is a Wiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment. Plant your independence.
Plant Wiffles. Noted Iowa State lover Jerry Palm.
Oh, God. It's your boy.
You ready for this?
You've been fighting with him for 15 years, Blum.
I might have to bury the hatchet here. Jerry came out with his playoff projections on Sunday. He has 4 Big 12 teams in the playoff.
That's insane.
I'm just noted Iowa State lover Jerry Palm. Noted. He has Iowa State in there.
Pat Forty did too, for what it's worth.
And again, this is what the conversation is going to be of. It's going to shift here, and this will
be like bracketology in 2 years.
It is. We're trying to predict the future, and your resume now is not going to be indicative of where you are in December. Anyway, everybody understands this. However, it's still fun to look at. He has Iowa State as the 8th seed, hosting Oregon on December 20th.
Oh, I like our chances there. We kicked Oregon's ass a few years back.
In Ames. Can you imagine December 20th in Ames in a playoff against Oregon?
Well, I read something over the summer on that note, and I think this needs to be talked about a little bit now so everybody isn't too pissed off if something would happen. From what I understand, the college football playoff has gone around to a lot of these cold weather places that they think would host and make sure they have backup plans.
Yeah, or at least a field that can handle it, right?
Correct. So, like, I'm talking like probably like Michigan, Ohio State, these Penn State.
Yep.
Like, I would guess that Michigan would have to be prepared to play in Ford Field.
Yep.
If that would be the case. If that's Iowa State, like, where do you play the game? Minnesota?
Do you go to U.S. Bank to play?
I honestly, like, I don't know where you can't do it at Wells Fargo.
No,
it's not big enough.
Not. I mean, the Unidome. No, that's not going to work. So what they made Penn State do is Penn State installed like that Green Bay Packers heated field situation. I don't think Iowa State has that. No, they don't. So
no, they don't. They don't have.
It's just not something that you would thought about when you're investing dollars here. By the way, a heated field. I'm not an agronomist. Let's talk to our neighbor Megan, but I'm gonna guess that's not cheap. So I'm not sure that's a great investment at this point. But interestingly, Iowa State would be the 8th seed, Oregon the 9th seed, and guess who's the 1 seed over there if Iowa State were to advance? Georgia.
Bring it on.
Yeah, let's go.
We want Georgia. We want the dogs.
But so he's got, just interestingly, he's got K-State, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Utah all in the playoff. Old Jerry does. Now, this is where it gets interesting because assuming, and this is why this week is fun as an Iowa State fan, Iowa State can't lose, but guess who can lose? Everybody else. And so when you start looking at the national landscape, Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois is a huge deal.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring this conversation up. Yeah. Because, I want to be able to at least clarify some of my stances on why I thought the Big 12 would be a one-bid league.
Yep.
So the Notre Dame losing and Florida State sucking definitely helps. And because, again, like my whole thing, and I just want to clarify this for this audience, I've never once been like, oh, it's because the Big 12 is a bad league that doesn't deserve 2 teams. That's never been my opinion. My opinion has been that this will happen based on perception more so than merit, which we've seen a lot of this, like in college athletics. If it was on the reality, Florida State would have been in last year, even though we knew
just on resume.
Yeah, we all knew when they were down those quarterbacks that they weren't one of the 4 best teams. But if it would have gone by what have you done to get here,
they were undefeated.
Undefeated conference champion. They beat LSU in the non-con, like they had good wins. It's not like they played some garbage schedule.
Correct.
Beat Notre Dame, I think, last year. Off the top of my head, Florida State should have been in the playoff if you go off of what they have done. Because I had a lot of people when I said this. Well, Iowa State's going to play a tougher schedule than Iowa. Absolutely, I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, I've also said with Iowa, like to our Iowa audience over on Iowa Everywhere, you guys have a perception problem too, because they're not going to want to put you in that offense in the playoff because of it's a television product.
Interesting for them, they have to beat Ohio State now.
Yes,
or they're done.
Correct. Even an 11-1, like. Do you see what I'm saying? Because
yes, I do.
A lot of times what we do here, and people will take 15 seconds of what you say and take it as a matter of fact. This is about context, and I don't believe in the playoff system and the committee like that. I don't believe it. I think I believe that they are trying to put out a very incredible television product, and I know that they will. But this is a lot like the NCAA tournament in the sense of, they're not going to do the Atlantic 10 school any benefit of doubt over the Big 12 school when it comes to seeding and stuff. Not apples to apples is probably not a great example, but that's been my take on it. Now, the one way I could see the Big 12 getting into that situation where they could have multiple bids is if there's stuff like we're seeing right now with Notre Dame losing. And I mean, if you take Florida State out, because the ACC fights the perception problem too. Who are the schools there that have positive perception, right or wrong? Well, it's Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. Miami hasn't done anything in decades, but they still get that because of what they were in the 90s, much like Nebraska will get if they are in the mix for the Big Ten. So I do think it's fair for us to sit here in week 3 and have this conversation now based on some other things that's happened around the country. If I clarified myself, because I feel like I've taken a lot of bullets for this, but it's not why it's not because of what you guys think I'm saying.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, the problem is like you'll see something like this and like, hey, why is Jerry's got 4 Big 12 teams in? Chris saying, Big 12's only gonna get 1. That doesn't add up. And what you're doing is you're trying to look at, all right, come December 4th, whenever that is, you have a 9-3 SEC team.
Correct. Say Ole Miss. They're the perfect example. That's probably what they'll be.
Yep, and a 10-2 Big 12 team. Who's going to get the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, flip on ESPN. Who do you think they're going to be pining for?
And that's basically what I'm looking at, because if Penn State were to lose to Bowling Green last week, that almost could have been a disqualifying loss for them. Like that was really nerve. Now they won it. They won it. If K-State would have lost to Tulane, that could have been disqualifying for them too. Now they won it. So these teams are still holding on, but I think for Notre Dame, now they lose one more game. It's going to be hard for me as a committee member to say 10-2 Notre Dame with losses to Northern Illinois and USC gets in.
And like one of their toughest games is Florida State, who is
not very good. Yeah. And so it's going to be, those decisions are going to be really hard when you're trying to figure out at-large berths. And I think what you're trying to say is the SEC, due to its national, prevalence, if all things are equal, the SEC is probably going to get the edge. Is that
absolutely? And the Big Ten.
And the Big Ten.
I just, and it's just, I mean, Brent, you know this better. With like Gundy's comments this week and in your space, it's just follow the money. And listen, I sound so like anti-authority, and I get it.
You're not a conspiracy theorist. I mean, it can.
No, I'm not. But I'm going like I've seen this with the Big 12 before with the Baylor TCU thing. The Big 12's been fighting this even when Texas and Oklahoma were in the league. My whole thing is I'm trying to prep our fans. I'm on your side here.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I'm not team SEC here. I promise you. But we've seen this perception problem with those schools.
Yep.
And you're telling me that they won't be fighting to keep the Big 12 out? Absolutely they will. They absolutely, because right now the perception, right or wrong, is that it is like sure it's called P4, but they think of us as a mid-major. I'm just telling you that's what the Big 10 and the SEC think.
And they think the same about the ACC as well.
Correct.
Unless you're maybe Miami and Clemson, and they get probably a little bit extra. I would say Utah. Utah would a little bit more cachet than Iowa State does, unfortunately.
Well, it's deserving. You know, Utah's been in how many Rose Bowls, and like that. I think they've earned it. Kyle Whittingham's been there for forever. But my thing is, we've seen this with the Big 12. How many playoff games did the Big 12 win over its TCU? Oklahoma never won one, did they?
Oklahoma never did.
Right? So, listen, I hope that, here's my hope, is that two Big 12 teams are 11-1 or 12-0 when they meet in the Big 12 championship, that Notre Dame has played itself out, that the ACC, you know, looks like a worst case scenario 2-bid league. And then you got a real shot. I think you have a real shot, but it is a numbers game. And I don't think anyone in Bristol, Connecticut or in that playoff committee is going to go to war for a Big 12 team, which, like it or not, again, this is a fact, smaller fan bases, which is why you don't get paid as many television dollars. This is a television product.
Yep. I just think it's going to be super interesting because I got last year's standings pulled up, right? So let's do a little exercise. Who had been the playoff teams last year? All right. This will kind of get to the point of why it's going to get really hard with those at-large berths. So Michigan's in. Michigan won the Big Ten.
Yep.
Now this is not perfect because again the Pac-12 is now no longer, and so that complicates things. But Washington would be there. Texas won the Big 12. Alabama, Georgia, or like Florida. It gets really hard.
Florida State definitely would have been in.
So here's the teams. Here we go. This will be good. Here are the teams from 11 to 16 last year. All right. You have, or let's start it at 10. Or So you got 11-2 Ole Miss, 11-2 Ohio State, 10-3 Arizona, 10-3 LSU, 10-3 Penn State, 10-3 Notre Dame, 10-3 Oklahoma. Who out of that is not getting in?
And you look at, again, like do some depth work more on perception than merit. Look at television ratings that those schools pull and look at what our schools pull. And it's not, again, like the perception is not always the reality. You've pointed this out for years brilliantly, that when you put Iowa State and Kansas State on ABC, it gets really good numbers, right? The problem is, right or wrong, they don't want to put us on ABC because they want to keep us down. And I'm telling you, this is a thing.
It's still my favorite thing that I think I won the battle against Mandel, but I'm not officially sure. But he would argue, well, Texas gets the highest numbers. It's like, well, Texas was on 25 times in primetime. Iowa State was on 2. Why do you think that is? Like, is it
No, you're right. You're 100% right.
Well, by the way,
I don't trust these people.
Yeah. Iowa State got like 3.5 million, which was a decent number. It wasn't huge. So
did it beat South Carolina?
I think so. I think it barely did. Yeah. Okay. I think it won the 2:30 time slot, but it wasn't.
I mean, it had to. That was a pretty bad time slot, which is great.
But I guess the question is, like, when you're watching football, this is the point here. When you're watching football on Saturday, you want as many of those fringy playoff teams, so those LSUs, those Ole Misses, those Oklahomas, to lose in a non-conference game. Because the issue, C-Dub, is if they're all undefeated going to conference, what the narrative's going to be come November and December is, oh, well, it's just the SEC beating up on each other. They're all the best teams.
Yes.
Like, the Big 12 needs these SEC schools to lose these non-conference games, and they probably won't. But once they get into that conference, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, well, the league's so good anyway. And you will not get multiple bids in unless some of these SEC and Big 10 schools lose in the non-conference. That's it. I don't care if they have an extra loss.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon losing would have been nice the other night.
It would have been huge.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's gonna if Oregon goes 10-2 in the Big Ten,
People will fight for them to be in.
they're gonna forget about what they did to Boise and whoever they played in week 1. Like they're not gonna care. No one's gonna bring that up. It's like, well, they beat all these great teams in the Big Ten. It's a
If
self
Iowa State's 10-2, be like, man, they struggled with North Dakota.
right.
Only beat them by 18.
Exactly.
Whatever
That's why that win over Iowa is going to be helpful. If that could be a tiebreaker if it comes to that.
Correct.
It's just going to be really hard, in my and your opinion. I think we're saying the same thing, to get that tiebreaker if you're facing off with an SEC or a Big Ten school. Whether that's fair or not, that's just kind of how we're looking at it. So, if you're Iowa State, how do you get in that large berth? I think you can afford 2 losses max, whether that's one in regular season, one in the championship game.
That's what I would say.
And even that would be,
I think 11-1, really good showing in the Big 12 championship game, even with the loss, and then you hope that these other teams stay down.
Yeah. I guess the point is, if Iowa State has 3 losses in any combination, it's probably game over for the playoff. And so it's 2 conversations. It's one, it's fun to be in this. It's fun that our noted Iowa State lover, Jerry Palm, has Iowa State in the playoff, which is great. It's just this thing is going to play out. And my fear is if these SEC and these Big Ten schools continue to go undefeated in the non-conference, even if they have one more conference loss in Iowa State, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt because it's the stronger league. And that's what you're going to run up against here.
I don't trust these people.
I don't either. It is nice to see, Iowa State pop up in these things, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's also what we talked about as well is the playoff is important. It's going to be a readjustment for fans. I think Iowa's a good example of this. Is their playoff chances are large. It's rough, I would say right now. Now their odds are still better than Iowa State's, which I don't necessarily agree with.
I think they may be in for a rude awakening too. If you look at their schedule, I don't know if it's as bad as we all thought it was. Like Illinois could beat them, Nebraska could beat them.
Yeah, Ohio State will beat them.
Michigan State's better than we thought they would be. Maryland's not too bad. Like I think all this like playoff or bust 10-2 talk was pretty ahead of the horse,
especially with that quarterback situation still.
Yeah,
whether it's fair or not. But I just think it's gonna be hard for the Big 12 to get the benefit of the doubt, and so focusing just on the playoff, is kind of, I don't say it's dangerous as a fan because it's fun. It's fun to talk about being in the playoff right now. Conversation.
For Iowa State football,
it doesn't make it a successful or not successful season.
For Iowa State football, is it fair that making a playoff would be the equivalent of making a Final Four in basketball?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason I say that, and I'm glad because we agree, I'm just trying to point out how hard it actually will be to do.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
And we've seen this playoff ever since the playoff became a thing. Like it can make fans and administrators just lose their minds.
Yes.
Where that's all you focus on.
I would be surprised. I'm actually curious. Maybe they sold it out anyway, but how many fans are going to be at that Iowa game this weekend?
I don't know.
Do they start losing some momentum because I don't know. I just think it's interesting how by putting so much focus on something that's out of your control, it almost makes it as a fan to be unrealistic expectations in some regard. And you won't enjoy the season because you're so much worried about, hey, what happens if we, stumble this 1 or 2 times.
I want to thank a couple of our great sponsors. The Iowa Clinic Men's Center has been with us since day one here on Cyclone Fanatic. Really appreciate them. Just booked an appointment with an ENT. Try and do that every few years. Daddy's got some bad allergies, Brent. Bad allergies.
They're going bad for me right now. I don't know what's going on.
It's brutal.
Iowa right now.
The locusts in the area, all that stuff. Yeah. Iowa Clinic Men's Center, and I like to take my family. We utilize the urgent care in Ankeny all the time. It's a fantastic little thing to have in our tool belt when one of the kids comes down with a fever. Appreciate them. Also, my longtime friends over at Mr. B Clothing and our friend Tim Sitzman. I like to go to the back room. It's one of my favorite places to shop in all of Des Moines. Really quality clothing at an affordable price. We appreciate them. Longtime support of Cyclone Fanatic, as well as our friends at Gravitate Co-working, gravitatecoworking.com, where you can go and view all the great co-working opportunities, not only in the Des Moines Metro, but around the state of Iowa. That is a field that continues to grow nationwide. gravitatecoworking.com. And last but certainly not least, my friends at Game Day Men's Health. Bill Morris and his team over at Game Day Ankeny takes great care of me. You can go to Game Day in West Des Moines. Eastern Iowa Clones. North Liberty has a Game Day Men's Health that you can frequent as well.
Seat up. I hit that big 4-0 milestone on Saturday. Do I need to go? I need to go in there, don't I?
You do. Get that T tested.
Get that T tested.
I won't make fun of you. I had low T.
Better than Hassel zero. Hassel zero T.
You have zero
T.
There's zero traces of testosterone in your body.
I gotta give Hassel some credit. He was a good sport. I know that's hard. When
we were killing him on Saturday.
We had a couple beverages and got him on the old FaceTime, and he was a good sport. His dad's not a fan of me, but I'm okay with it. Like I respect Mr. Hassel.
I think if you and Don actually spent time together, you'd like each other. I think he likes to play to the crowd, in my opinion.
I asked if I could be on part of the Don Hassel text message, and Don wrote back, "If Blum's in, I'm out." So I said, "No, I rescind the offer."
What a time to be alive.
What a time, yes.
Let's go through the notable Big 12 games on Iowa State's bye week. Actually interested in Thursday's game.
Yes.
6 o'clock. It is Arizona State at Texas State, which doesn't sound. This is one of those weird. You notice all these Big 12 schools, most of them are going to a weird non-con. So Iowa State is not alone when you point out why are we playing at Ohio? This is becoming more and more common.
And it's going to become potentially more common because you don't those bye games are creeping up towards 2 million.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And when you start talking about revenue sharing, 2 million's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to go to one of these games, that's a sacrifice.
It's like an entire basketball roster.
It is. You might have to make in order to stay competitive in that. So these are the conversations that are happening in athletic departments. Now, if you're one of those big dogs, it still makes sense to just buy that win. But if you're not a big dog, maybe it makes sense to go to a MAC school or go to an American school, yada yada.
Well, that is a 6:30 kick on ESPN on Thursday.
I'm putting them on upset alert.
I would too. That feels really tricky to me. You've got UNLV at Kansas. That is at the soccer stadium in Kansas City on Friday night, 6 o'clock. I wish that they weren't stepping on each other because we've got 2 good Big 12 games on at the same time. Then at 7 o'clock Friday, Arizona at Kansas State, which is one of the marquee Big 12 games of the year. Unfortunately, it doesn't count as a Big 12 game. I hate this. I get it. I understand why. I hate it.
And they don't play each other as conference opponents either. So it's not like they play twice.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to ignore the result here? I mean, we can't ignore the result.
What if it came down to they're in a tie?
Yeah.
To get into the Big 12 championship game, but they couldn't factor in this result?
Well, then honestly, back to our earlier conversation, if they're tied, they're both 10-2 from the playoff size, you're looking exactly at that game, whether it's a conference game or not. Whoever won that game is going to get the edge. So this it's a huge game. I really like K-State in this game, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't been high on Arizona all offseason. I think they've probably gotten. I don't think people realize how good that coach was that left. And I don't know much about the new guy, admittedly, but I thought that Fish was a pretty damn good coach.
It's one of my 5-star Elite Gold Platinum plays of the year.
This is?
Yeah. Kansas
State at 7?
Yep.
Wow.
Just if you're one of those folks, I'm obviously not, but just FYI.
5-star Elite Platinum
Gold
plays
Star
of the
lock.
year.
Yeah.
Wow. Oklahoma State is at Tulsa. We think Oklahoma State will roll.
Yep.
Another one, Cincinnati travels to Miami of Ohio. 11 o'clock on ESPNU.
So we talked about this, and I missed it, but technically Miami of Ohio is in Oxford, Ohio, which is just north of Cincinnati. why they're called Miami.
Yeah, why are they called Miami?
I could Google it. I could ask ChatGPT. In fact, let me ask ChatGPT here and see why. I don't know. Must be like a Miami. I do think Miami was a Native American tribe, I believe. Maybe in
Oh,
the area.
okay.
I will look that up while you
God.
go down the other game.
I'm almost done with Leach's book. Leach wrote a book about Geronimo, the Native American chief. Holy crap. And then I'm done with everything Leach has ever written. I've studied everything the man has ever put to pen.
I was right.
Good for you.
Miami University comes from the Miami people, a Native American tribe that originally inhabited the region.
So I think I'm going to go down. I can't wait for Iowa State's first road trip to Tucson and just go through the burial grounds and like all the great Native American sites down there.
You won't even need to go to the game. You're like, I'm just going to.
I would actually, I would prefer to go and study Cohais and, all the boys from down the Apache Nation down there.
I don't think we have to worry. We don't have to worry about Cincinnati, Miami. I mean,
you have to read this book about Geronimo that Leach wrote. It's so fascinating because it's like a biography and like history of the great Apache war chief Geronimo. But like every 2 times a page, there's a thing called commentary, and it's like Leach's take on the story that just happened, and he'll oftentimes compare it to football. It's so great.
It's love that
absolute treasure. This book is.
Leach is one of the all-time great coaches, and he still has time to like write a book about a totally different topic.
Yeah, I know.
What have you done with your life, Williams? How's your book coming along?
Not nearly as fast as Leach was doing it. Jiminy Christmas. You got to read it though if you're a Leach person out there. West Virginia at Pitt, backyard brawl, 2:30, ESPN 2. Which, again, like these games, if West Virginia loses, does it matter for the Big 12? Probably not. But you don't want to rack up losses to Pitt. Like they beat Cincinnati last week. Like Big 12 needs as many of these games as possible.
Well, and I would say also just wins over the ACC are important because you're going to be in the muck with those guys all.
I also would prefer West Virginia to win until they play Iowa State in a few weeks.
Yes, 100%. We're Team West Virginia again.
Because that's a losable game for Iowa State, and you want it to appear to be as tough as possible.
Correct.
Utah is at Utah State, 3:30 kick. You got Air Force at Baylor.
Have we heard about Rising yet?
I hadn't last I checked.
Last I heard, and this is Monday, they're probably going to hold him out just because, but it's not a serious thing apparently.
Yeah, it certainly didn't feel like last year's injury by reading between the lines. Baylor is hosting Air Force. What is the line on that game? That feels
sus. It's a sus game.
I think I'm out on the Aranda era.
What is going on with? Okay, Air Force must be bad because Baylor's favored by 15.5. So something weird's there. Oh well, here's why.
Are you done with Aranda?
I don't. Well, I'm not done yet. They had a bunch of new players. They're gonna be one of those teams that it's gonna take them a little bit.
Did I read into the NIL stuff with them too much? Though we pay players and all that. Did I read into that? It felt very desperate and forced.
Well, it was, but now will it pay? Those teams like that are going to take a while. It's going to take them longer to figure it out. I mean, Florida State's fighting the same thing. Florida State spent like 14 mil just on football. Like they worked for them last year, but this is the danger of doing that: is you get the right mix, it can work great. You get the wrong mix, and when it goes sideways, you got a bunch of guys that maybe not are on the same page.
Did you see what's his name for Colorado, who's like my favorite player in the country, who doesn't play for Iowa, Travis?
Yeah.
It didn't even try and tackle that Nebraska running back. Did you see that? Like what a perfect example of what bad culture can do in this era. He didn't even try and tackle the guy because he didn't want to get hurt.
I think it's going to be super interesting because the Florida State last year proved how buying a team can really pay off. Like it absolutely can work. mean, they assembled a great roster. They had a good quarterback. It works great. This year, they tried to do the same thing, spent probably double that they did the year prior. The quarterback isn't as good, and it doesn't work. That's where I keep coming back to. Still, the most important position in football is the quarterback. That's why those guys are, but they're hard to find. So you gotta keep whatever one you have.
Colorado at Colorado State again. Colorado State stinks, but should Colorado be favored by 7.5 in a road game anywhere, especially against an in-state rival who hates you?
And that game was intense last year, right? Remember there was like a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild thing here, that game is on CBS National.
Jeez.
Dion just continues to.
He in that Colorado-Nebraska game got a monster number again. There's like 7 or 8 million people.
It's crazy what people will do like for bad football, but here we are talking about it.
I don't understand it.
They're terrible up front on both sides.
Yeah.
And now Shadir's out for at least, I think I said 2 to 3 weeks after his surgery is what it looked like. Dion says his son is a fast healer though.
Okay.
So that's a relief.
They go to they have Baylor next week and then at UCF. So that Baylor Colorado game could be a
elimination.
Turn out the lights type of game at that point.
Central Florida at TCU, the first Big 12 game of the year.
I'm excited for this one. I think this is interesting. We'll see who's real here. Both teams are going to be there throughout the year, but I think this is a reputation game. The fact that UCF is now the favorite is what I'm looking at. Is interesting to me.
I certainly like UCF's roster better. They've never really won a game on the road, like a substantial game on the road in the Big 12. So can they do it here?
I don't know. I'm very curious at this one. I would lean TCU just based on being at home, but it's not exactly a daunting place to go play anyway.
Rice is at Houston. We'll jump across town. Yep. And then we've got your response to that game was hilarious for those people watching on the podcast. Blum looked at me like I could not give two shits about Rice at Houston. Subtle, interesting game. BYU at Wyoming, only because BYU's 2-0, and Kalani Sitake was a guy who was probably coaching for his job this year. A 3-0 start, does it mean anything? I don't know. I still don't think they're very good. But it could be enough if you're 3-0 and you're BYU to get yourself in a bowl game later in the year.
Oh, yeah. And a 3-0 BYU will start to turn some heads with 2 road wins, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other impressive part. Because
and Wyoming's not, like, the reputation of them is not terrible.
It's not. Now, the team might be, but the reputation is okay.
My point is people will look at that and be like,
oh, BYU's
no, they're 0-2 with a loss to Idaho, so it's not.
Totally. And then who does BYU? Let's take a look. Who do they have opening in conference?
I got it for you right here. So they host Kansas State next week. They'll probably lose that one.
Well, that's a night game at
9:30 after dark. That's a RV Village special.
Yes, Avery on alert.
Then they go to Baylor. They got a tough start to their schedule, and then they have Arizona and Oklahoma State at home. And then their schedules, they may have the worst in the Big 12.
Good luck.
At Central Florida, at Utah, Kansas, at Arizona State, and versus Houston.
Jeez, they're all over.
Even if they win, they're going to struggle to win 6, in my opinion.
Yeah, they basically need to win Saturday to make a bowl.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, they're not going to be favored in 3 Big 12 games. Mm-hmm. They'll be maybe favored against Houston at home.
Yep. And that's
probably it.
Yep. Interesting.
Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network, where we break down the BYU Cougars. No, it'll be a fun bye weekend. I hope everybody enjoys it. What is it? Pumpkin patch season yet? I don't know. I haven't had a gun to my head to go to one yet.
I have not had a spice latte yet. Do you do the pumpkin spice latte?
No, I do have a coffee like protein thing that I like to drink in the morning, and I did just purchase one, the pumpkin flavor, because I'm passionate about pumpkin.
We're trending that way. Yeah.
But I'm kind of I'll drink the good ones now, but I used to do the pumpkin beer power ratings where I would drink like 30 of them in a year and power rate them. I'm off that.
That sounds like a stomach ache to me.
No, I just I pretty much know what I like with beer now. I stick to the Ames Lager and the Busch Light, and I don't need to venture out too much anymore.
Straight to Cody Road from there.
Yeah, I really do. Like I'd rather just drink a little bit of whiskey and go to bed. God, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, I think we qualify, pal. I'm joining you in the 4th Century Club.
Real quick, how is the Ames Lager sales going? Have you heard anything? Are
really
we
well.
Killing it?
Yeah,
Good.
really well. It is basically, the distributor in Des Moines said it's basically the only NIL beer that is actually selling. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, the fairway that I go to, and I have no idea if they're even trying to get Ames Lager. It never has Ames Lager in stock, and it always has Swarm.
Yeah, I would say based on the intel I got from the distributor in Des Moines, that's fairly common at the moment. Now we need to keep
that Swarm beer is shit though.
I haven't
like
had
it sucks.
I'm not going to disparage the beer, but I haven't had it, so
it sucks. I'll say it.
I'll just keep buying the Ames Lager even on the bye week. Like it has you guys, it's really helped. Like it has helped the bottom line tremendously, and they're great people, and it's good. And let's just keep on and get your We Will pizzas too. Get your We Will pizzas. What it's about pizza season. Everybody.
I was telling Blum last night I was out walking Diffie. Brent was out there playing catch with Ev, and I was saying that Blum drinking an Ames Lager, eating a We Will pizza on the Amish bench was the most on-brand thing after the Cyhawk game I've ever seen.
And don't forget, for my friends on the Iowa message boards, I've deposited that 5 cents as well to collect the can, so that will.
Well, we're a very every penny helps.
Every penny helps, everybody. That's the beauty of the Ames Lager. You're not only buying it, you get the 5 cents, throw that back into the pot too.
Compound. I hope you guys are investing that money into a S&P 500 index fund. Just watch it grow. Next, when Kyle Conradi graduates and we need another kicker.
So our guys Mahoney and Woody talked about this. Apparently it's, where was it? You were talking about?
Oh, it's Conradi.
Conradi.
That. Well, Nestler and Danielson got it all in my head. The wrong way.
And then Walters, did Walters have it right? Did he have Conradi or Conradi? We're going to need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, we don't need another Wongwu situation.
We do not. Like Kyle, you're a freshman. Like, let's get it right. We don't offend me. Tell me how you want your name to be said. And
Conradi.
He got the Pop-Tart delivery yesterday. Did you see that?
That was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations on
Imagine too, like 4 years ago, that would have been an NCAA violation. Oh my God, they gave him Pop-Tarts!
Pop-Tarts!
Death penalty!
Somebody call the compliance officer.
It is so funny now to look back at that era, how stupid some of those rules were.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Oh, my wife made scotcheroos for the offensive line. The horror!
Remember Yuri Ubalik?
Oh, God, yes.
And he used a car because his car broke down from a donor to like drive around, and he got like a 6-game NCAA.
It wasn't even like an Iowa State donor.
No, it was like somebody from Marshalltown
because he played JUCO ball in Marshalltown.
Yes,
and so it was like somebody who felt sorry for him because he was this foreign kid that didn't have family around.
Yeah, and he got like a 6-game suspension for that.
I hope that's the next like tell-all that we can shine a light on the stupidity of. I'm not coming at any but like individuals because these compliance people are good people who are just they're doing their jobs. They're just enforcing rules, but the stupidity of so much crap that this industry put up with for decades.
Yeah, and it still has survived. It has functioned. Now it's gonna be interesting. We'll talk about it next week. It's thriving. Yeah, the ratings have never been higher and still have never been higher.
I get that all the time. People will be like, "Oh, NIL is killing college." No, it's really not. Literally every metric we have says the opposite.
I think attendance probably has dropped a little bit nationwide, but you could argue that's more because of the
TV
situation than anything. But that's another topic.
Well, and that's the deal too, that y'all in the athletic departments and NIL people, you guys have got to get together at some point.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be on the same page. You can't have the fans funding everything and then charging them more for parking and water, and there's got to be a bubble.
Reset somewhere. I agree.
Yeah, I don't know where it is, and
Yep.
you guys are all smarter than me. Somebody will figure that out, but I'm sure that in record inflation in this country.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't my job, it's tough. Like every time you fill up the RV and you buy food, it's like $250, and like it's
totally
have lives.
That's why I want to be respectful of
absolutely.
To ask people.
Well, that's why I like the beer thing, right?
Yeah.
Like because you actually get something out of it, not just we're putting our faith in this board on a collective. We don't really know these people. We think they're good people, right? Like some people, like that's a thing, and I get it because there's been so many bad charities over the years in this country. But like when you do that, you're doing both.
You get both. And what I would tell you all is without your support, Saturday's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like Saturday's result was a direct.
Oh yeah.
I'm rewinding way back to December when it got
Absolutely.
really scary there for a while with several of the guys that made huge plays on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everyone feels proud of what they've done.
And
then also the work in the community as well. Like that's all a part of it. But
no doubt.
And that's why I know we're mindful of continuing to ask, but also appreciate everybody still stepping up to the cause and answering the bell, because without that, then you end up in a rough spot. So
good place to end it. Thank you for your time, Blum.
Peace.
Go give us a 5-star review if you all don't mind. Everywhere you get your podcast. We are on YouTube as well. If you haven't found us on YouTube, go find Cyclone Fanatic on YouTube. A lot of people are watching these shows on YouTube now. It's becoming a pretty big deal. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for listening here today. We will be back on Sunday night here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network.